The Hebrew text in the Bible has hidden formats. By revealing these formats, I will prove the first writer's words were hidden from you. These formats look like poetry as I group them into small paragraphs. Their grouping will become known as a psalm, and together they become psalms. Let me show you our Creator's 12 commandments, listed in Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through 17. Any father of a family or his wife who did not obey any one of these 12 commandments, our Creator demanded they bring him a sin offering. Thus, our Creator defined the word sin as not obeying any one of these 12 commandments. Next, I want to show you how I changed one word in Exodus 26, verse 26, the word bars to arches, and the words now reveal the style of the roof for our Creator's tent for meeting with Him. Let me show you the translator's words from the preface of the 1611 King James Bible. They gave 4 reasons for themselves or others to edit the Bible's words. The red arrow at the top points to their 3rd reason to edit the text. By the light and feeling we attained unto ourselves. The next red arrow down points to them giving the title, the Divine, to a clerk named Gregory. The next block of words, they point out they were happy that the first emperor of Rome established the year to the course of the sun. Behind this text means Nebuchadnezzar ordered his kingdom to follow our Creator's calendar when he stopped eating grass. Did you notice the letter S in sun is capitalized? This is to give respect to the Egyptian sun god Ra. Have you seen the Egyptian obelisk in the Vatican's front yard? The last arrow points to your reward for studying the Bible. Your reward is to have a fellowship with the saints and participation of a heavenly nature that will never fade away. There is no such thing as nature to a truthful Christian. Our Creator created everything. By their own words, they were not seeking to know our Creator or Jesus. Not everyone has the knowledge to correct every word. I have an old Bible program that has the New American Standard Bible 1977 concordance to help find a better word. Their concordance has the number of times they use that English word in a parenthesis for that Hebrew word. The translators removed his name, YHVH, to put in 2 titles, Lord and God. I replaced those titles using the letters Y and V as his name, for the Hebrew language does not have a J, O, or W. By using these 2 letters, I am closer to the truth than anyone using J, O, or W for his name. So why is there a single letter O in the Hebrew text 1,095 times? No proper English was used? The blue highlighted text is text that I am removing. The red highlighted words are little words that I'm adding. Gray italic words are words that I added. To respect and honor our Creator, all capital letters in purple are our Creator's words. This is Jesus' prophecy, for I am revealing the first writer's words to tell you the true truths about Jesus. As the text is revealed, you can taste the writer's style of wording. Their words will take your belief to trusting our Creator. You will be watching prophecy before your eyes as I edit true truths back into their psalms. Oops, okay, bad start. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do all of Ezra now as a review and show you what the formats look like. I'm going to go through all the editing. The blue highlight means I'm removing that text. If I'm changing a word, this is what I do, and highlight it in green. If I'm completely adding a word, I will put it in italic. And then if I can't find a decent word to be used, I turn around and I'll make it into a gray text to say that I completely added that. Now, when the words are I'm replacing like this right here, what I'm just showing here is the word that I'm replacing it, but it is within the shadow of the word or the intent of this word. So I'm not saying that I needed to put this text in gray. But the object is I needed to change the word from word to prophecy. These words weren't needed because I'm looking for a format. The word was not spirit, it was the heart of Cyrus. And then, I better put up on the side here. These are what I found in the group or in these chapters. So those are going to run while I'm sitting here talking to you. But if you want to take screenshots for right now, that's fine. But that's the text Ezra, what I'm going to reveal by getting rid of a lot of this text here in blue and show you what is really the first writer's words here. I don't see anything that needs to be really mentioned here. Now, I've explained why I use two letters YV for our Creator's name. And when I find the word God in the text, and if it is Elohim, I use the word Creator, okay? That's a better title. If you just replace every word or every title God in Genesis and put our Creator, you will find that fits perfectly. Here's an example of me having to add the text here. Nearby, kingdoms nearby. Although the text says that this king is from Persia, that's suspect. He should be coming from Babylon, but I will edit the text as I go through it and show more and more editing. And then if you see on the right-hand side there, still the text that's highlighted in yellow is suspect yet. Because as I start to combine all the books together, you'll see that it will be changing from a lot, I guess, when you start adding extra text. And some of this text is not going to make it anyway. I needed to change the word go to return. I don't know why I didn't change that, or why I changed that. I must have changed it back. So, got me. The word may is used, but usually that isn't true. So I got rid of it. Either our Creator is going to do or not do, or did. I had to change the word cattle to herds, just to keep with the subject of how when they went back, they still needed their goats and rams for offerings, sacrifice and offerings. I should say Ezra is the story about returning to Jerusalem. So I should have mentioned that right off the bat. But I had to add the word travel. And you can see a lot of this text didn't make it. It doesn't need there. And as you can see, I'm looking for verses that are connecting together. And arose to leave, that would have been, that's just a little bit out of the way of the text. So I'm saying I'm adding that word, reducing everyone to one. And I had to use the word most instead of all. And add the word gave. And don't need articles of silver or gold. They gave him silver and gold, and we know what that means. a lot of the text that I'm getting rid of, you'll find that they're doubles of, or it doesn't connect to the story, or it's already been said before. So, and now when I've got herds, I added donkeys so they had something to transport or take their things with them. These articles are actually utensils from his house, and they should be all capital letters. Anything that's our Creator's possession or when he's speaking, I respect our Creator by putting all capital letters on. I had to add the word King Nebuchadnezzar, and he didn't put it in the house of his gods. It was in his treasury. If you know the story in Daniel, that his son brought these out and had a feast with all these plates and gold, so they wouldn't have been in his house. They would have been in the treasury. They were made out of gold and silver. Let's see. Carried to took away, yeah. And a lot of times I'm correcting the text, and it's not that hard to correct a lot of the text, but you can see I need to add a verse here to complete the format. He didn't count them, he gave them to Daniel. I've chosen Daniel because of the fact that when you put all this text together, and I've been doing this for 30 years, so I pretty much know all the stories, and it has to be Daniel is the one who is given everything to return. The books you have in the Bible, they're just made up false. I went through all of them looking for hidden formats. A lot of them didn't have any formats, and so I just threw them out, didn't need them. And what I had left was I had Daniel. Let's put it this way: our Creator made himself known. Nebuchadnezzar ate grass. When he got done eating grass, he proclaimed that he is the God of all gods, and they even changed the calendar for the Babylon to our Creator's calendar, which starts at summer solstice. And I just know that the text that I have, Daniel is only about 40 years old, so he would have returned, and he was, that he was, if you've read Daniel at all, you know how he was our Creator's prophet in Babylon. So, and he didn't make him a prince; he made him a governor for the area that they were returning to. And when you look at all these numbers, this is just kind of stupid. But the object is again utensils, and then again Daniel. He didn't brought them down; he led them down. And I've named them. They're not exiles; they were captives, and the captives now became survivors. Now we also have survivors in the land of Israel. But those are going to be known as the remnant. So you understand who is who, and those that went into Egypt, they fled. They're going to be known as those who fled away. So they headed back to Jerusalem, and Ezra, he's not really going to be mentioned for quite a while. So, but this is the text that I just cleaned up here. This is what it looks like, but I've got it running off to the side so you can see that. Ezra 2, This had a lot of numbers, names, things like that. They just don't mean anything to us today. So any kind of text like that, I just throw out. And then it has, we arrived at the house for Wivey, and I had to add this text because the word willing or any of these words I could not use to fill in. What I'm looking for, I try to do, is that if you notice, I'm using one major word here and one major word here to make this verse up. And you'll see here, here, and if you look on the other side here, you'll see that's what happens a lot. Although here, when I added it, I have 3 in this. So sometimes you'll see 3. I try to stay away from that though. But I've got to use the text that what I've got. So, and then down here, they've changed the numbers again, so that doesn't mean anything. Oh, gold, oh, that's how much money they gave to them. And that's just too much money even at that time. And there wasn't much here in Israel, or chapter 2, although I did have to add the word tribes, lands, not cities, but land. They lived on their own land, tribes' land in all Israel. In other words, when they got there, they know that they were supposed to go to Jerusalem. So the story is from Zechariah, is that the prophet down there, he was telling them that they're coming, and then he met them, and he was told by our Creator to, when he meets them, to start setting up the priests and start rebuilding his house and his and Jerusalem. Now that was the decree from the king. And if you read that text, you would see that he was told, I don't have that text anywhere, that he was told to rebuild his house. So, but that's just going to be lost. Yeah, and this is the guy's name that, or the prophet's name that I was telling you about, that I've already done his text. And at the end of this video, you'll see me meshing that into Ezra. So this video's going to take pretty much an hour, I think, at least, or maybe 2 hours. And I guess I should at least have that up on the screen over here for me to see if I get any warnings, because I have trouble streaming here. So, okay, no problems yet. Then they were to build the altars, and it has to be more than one. There was 12 or 13 of them. And they're for the sin offerings. Okay, our Creator told them if they did not obey the 12 commandments, that they were to bring a sin offering. So the 12 commandments are known as sins. Here I've had to add the word courtyard and change the word foundation to floor. Notice that I only have 2 verses here. I don't know if I have any more text to go with them. But what I'll do is I save them, and then later, if I find a verse someplace else in Ezra that can go together, or the story's been disconnected and put someplace else, sometimes it can be put together, or I'll put into empty lines to keep the format showing that there's a 4-verse format here in Ezra. And if you noticed on the images on the right, they're all 4 verses. So they didn't have really They call it money, but I know that it was silver that they used. So I'm trying to keep that in line. So you understand it as money, but it's going to be known as silver or pieces of silver. Now here you can see I've added a lot of text here, and that's because in Lebanon you have to bring down these cedar logs, and then they needed them for scaffolding. They needed them to build the roof. So they would have cut the logs in Lebanon, cedar trees, then put them to the coastline, and it would have been easier to just ship them, tie them together like a raft, and then bringing them down to the bringing them on the Mediterranean Sea, down to the Japta River. Now, when you look at the maps that I'll be adding to the text, Japta River comes in from the Mediterranean, and it goes really close to Jerusalem, so they could have brought the logs up, and then it would have been very simple to transport them, maybe a couple miles to get to his house, to build inside walls, and then on the inside, and that would be in the holy room, the 20 by 20 cubic holy room, and then in the other side of the house, it is known as a storage area. They needed to keep those plates. They needed to keep the knives and pretty much forks to cut the mussels and things like that, and the plates. The priest's robes would have been in there. Their horns would have been in there, and maybe some of this when they were transporting the articles in the holy room, they made poles, overlaid them with gold, and they never were to touch those items by hand. So they would have had those poles in that room as well. And according to the permission, what was the decree? The king gives a decree. And this, I just had to transfer the word king and used it over here. It reads better this way. And then I added all this text here and paid the Lebanese out of the king's treasury, because in the text itself, you're going to find that when they search the archives, that's what King Denarius had ordered Daniel to do when he's rebuilding. If he needed any money, extra money, the king out of the king's treasury. Okay, this is just two verses stuck out in the middle. Again, get a little warm here. I need to get that AC down here, or get that a little cooler for me. Now, the names that you see here are coming from Zechariah. So that's why I got these two names in here. And I'm trying to make sure that the stories are remaining with the same names. That always helps. So we don't have two people and everybody trying to figure out who's who. I've done that already and made sure these are the names. And I get to choose them, so I chose them from Zechariah. And all this talk is done. All this is not really needed. A lot of this is just writing words that weren't really true. So I got rid of them. Yeah, but here's 3 all cleaned up. And you can see I have those, and then there's going to be a gap because the story changes. And then the story is going to change again here. Now 4, I changed the word from people to tribes because they know they've always lived by tribes. They've always lived by family lineage, and that's because the inheritance of the land. So they always respected their forefathers, and so they would live on their own land. So they were always called. So I'm using the word tribes to describe all of them together, not just our people. I wanted to make sure that they're being said correctly. Return and rebuilding. Need the word rebuilding. Okay, not building, because it was made out of granite blocks. Okay. To know that background on his house, David had 80,000 hewers according to the text, but we know that those numbers are complete lies. So if he had 8,000, that's quite a few. But when I say granite blocks, it's because Solomon said we made him a forever house. So it had to be granite blocks. Now, when you look in Jerusalem and you look for the quarries in Jerusalem or in Israel, you'll find there's a white granite quarry by Hebron and a red granite quarry by Jerusalem. So we have to go back to Moses' time when he was building the tent, and the tent was made out of ram hides or goat hides, and those are white. So you now know it was a white granite building. So, and I just keep following with Daniel's name here. And when they're asking a question, I need to have it asked and not just a said. Why are you restoring it? Even though I should have put a question mark here. And this is the conversation with the people east of the Jordan River had come over and were trying to, as you can see down here, discouraged them from rebuilding because they didn't understand what was going on. You got to remember, probably maybe 60 to 80,000 people might have come back down. They were there in Babylon for 40 years. So, and they weren't slaves. They were worked as workers in fields, but they still were able to buy their own food, given a wage. But it was for the better of the society that they needed more workers to, I guess, for the wealthy to have more of. But the kings do not command. He decreed these things. That's what Daniel's going to tell them, that when they came over, decreed it to him, because that's what a king does. Then they frightened them from rebuilding, and they hired counselors. Now, what is counselors going to do? I had to put in raiders, okay? But the intent was that they're frightening, so hired. So yes, I didn't add it as a gray text, but it was the intent of the words around it, that they were raiders to frustrate us for. Now, it says all, counsel all the days of Cyrus is what it would have said. But the object is they go by a 5 count of 7 days a week to mean that's what their month is. So I will not use the word month unless I are speaking about the pagan moon month calendar. Now, again, they're talking about in Persia, so the text really is still got questions here. Like when Denarius sent them, how many years before he died, and how long did it take them to start building for these people to attack them, and then write this complaint It's not an accusation. I try to, when I see words like accusation here, whoops, something just happened here over here. Okay, it flickered. But when you see the word accusation, a lot of times I change it to something simpler, hoping to make sure the 12-year-olds can read this, and try to get the words as simple enough that I figure that they should understand these words. Always trying to do that to the text. I don't want them to go to a secular dictionary to look up words. And against the inhabitants, we know that they're people. Inhabitants would be many races. Now here, this is a king, and we're going to find out that this is the king of Egypt. But they've confused you by saying now he's the king in Persia. So, but anyway, this letter was written to Cyrus, and it was in letter, and it was written in Aramaic. Now, the thing here is Aramaic means that this is the language of those enemies from the east of the river. Okay, so don't tell me Jesus spoke in Aramaic. He wouldn't be speaking in the enemy's language. He came to the poor, and the poor would not have speak 3 different languages: Roman, Hebrew, and Aramaic. So let's try to be truthful when we speak about our things about Jesus. And he was the governor of this on the east side of the river. He wasn't a commander. He was the governor. They had assigned people to collect taxes, okay, and then send them up to Babylon. Yeah, because all this is double speaking of the text that you're going to see down here. This is the copy of the letter that they sent, and it wasn't to this king at all. We already have his name, so a lot of times if it's been mentioned before, I don't need it, so I just get rid of it. Your servant from the east of the river, I had to add the word Jordan. Now it says beyond what? The Jordan River goes into the Dead Sea. So sometimes when you're reading the text, just stupid words appear. So I had to make sure that they were east of the Jordan River, because the Arabs would have been nomads in Saudi Arabia desert. And then because the land was free now, so they would have came in and settled on the east side of the Jordan River, which Moses gave to 3 tribes, 2.5 tribes, for their inheritance land. But that is not the promised land. The promised land is on the east side or west side of the Jordan River. So the enemy took over there, or the Arabs took over there, and then they became their enemies when they started coming down. This is them talking about not the Jews. The Jews don't believe in Jesus, so we know that that's the wrong word. It's Israelis. Those are the ones. Every time you read the word Israelis in the text that I'm doing, means those are the ones still obeying our Creator, okay, living by His commands. And I had to add the word Babylon. It was coming from you, but it had to be they're coming from Babylon. Have come to us at Jerusalem, and they are rebuilding. They got a rebellious and evil city. I don't need all kinds of little added extras to the text, so it's just city. And they are finishing the walls and repair the foundation. You can't repair the foundation. Now, I just got done talking about the house for our Creator being made out of granite. So that's going to be quite heavy. So the foundation would have been already established because they only burnt the house. So I don't know if they cracked many walls or whatever, but you got to understand all the roof slate pieces would have probably been made out of granite. So just to let you know how big those timbers are that they need for the roof. But the foundations would have never been repaired. And then around in the courtyard, it would have been limestone, I would say, because if you have granite all around, that's would be news to me. I just don't see that because there's a limestone quarry near Shechem. So that would have been used to make the walls or the towers around it, and then the walls would have been made out of strong wood or lumber. But our Creator has told a prophet that there will be no walls built. So you got to pay attention to the texts to not add. So when you see me getting rid of some words like this, and you say, well, they could have belonged. And I said, yes, I understand that. But the only thing is the text, you got to understand all of it. That's why I started with Zechariah. Okay. And they're warning about will not pay tribute or, damage the revenue of the king. Not fitting for us to have the king be dishonored. Therefore, we sent to inform our king. Everybody in the text is being called their king as our king, because that would just make it first person, and that would be what was happening at that time. That they didn't have their own kings anymore, that they lived under another king. Let a search be made in the record books. Well, it's actually the records that got to be in a library. So I put in the word library. And they aren't really record books. They're tablets. Babylon made clay tablets so nobody could screw with the text. That after they wrote in Babylonian, and then they could fire them up, and then that was it. Nobody could get in there and fudge the answer, or like what they've done here and for the last 2,000 years with our Creator's words to us and the people known as Israelis. It wasn't a rebellious city at all. They did not fight Babylon. I mean, when they come down, they didn't have the strength to, but it was mighty city at that time of David, because all the surrounding land all the way was under David's control, and from Solomon's time down, they all paid tribute for like 200 years. So this is what means by a mighty city, is Jerusalem. And it will damage the kings, and then they'll revolt. So, and their province revolting. I don't know if I'm going to stay with the word province, but I know that that's what Babylon called the areas. So I might have to stick to the word province. So just to let you know why I'm using that word right now. It couldn't be just past days. It has to be past years. The city was captured, not laid waste. It was captured, and then it was burnt. Yes, that's true. But it was captured first, and just like this, see, that's just a repeat of what's been said already. And this, we don't need to know all the detail about these guys with him. And this is from the east side of the river. And this is the king's returning letter to him. and it wasn't your document. It was a complaint. We named it as a complaint before, so it's a complaint now. Keeping with the words not being changed all over the place. And you notice it had to be translated and read to him. Okay. Now, that to me, when it's said like that, it means there wasn't anybody assigned from Babylon, like troops or guards or established officials to make sure that the king's collecting revenue. So this is a hint at what takes place or took place at that time. Just little things like this that gives us more of an insight of what was really like 2,400 years ago. And that's about what I figured this text is written when they were returning. It could be 2,200 years, but I'll give it just a random timeline here, 24 to 2,200 years ago. And he's reviewing what he said, and yes, he said he checked that out, and now he's going to, he needed to add the word around their land, so it's almost like I had to make up this whole verse, and govern all around their land, because you can't use the word provinces because that's what they call them, or Babylon would have called them. Okay, so what he's done is he's given this decree to stop the Israelis, make them stop so that the city is not rebuilt. Now, when I say the city here, there's not enough words in here to say the house as well. But the thing here is the king was worried about the word city. And then after it was written or read to this guy here from east of the river, they went in haste and they stopped them from building the house and forced them by his decree. And then they said that the work stopped in the second year for Cyrus. Now see, now they got Darius put in here, and he's the king of Persia. I don't think Persia takes over yet. It's just it doesn't make sense. But anyways, this is the text that was found, and there's quite a bit of text here that was found in there, which is good because it does tell us a lot of what the returning story is about. Now we're back on the land where the remnant are at, because I had to put remnant. They aren't Jews. Our Creator left those that believed in our Creator. So the thing here is the text has to reflect who they are truthfully. So I'm using the word remnant. Now, they were just in Judah. They were in all the promised land, and that means the promised land west of the Jordan River. So something happened here. I lost who this guy's before then, so I better put this in here right now. But it looks like I lost who. It's got to be that great big long word, Sesabel, I don't know. And I forgot to correct his name too. But they rose and began to rebuild his house by these two prophets that were in the land. And my next book is going to be Haggai that I go through. So we keep building up these books and keep putting them together to get a complete story, or as much from whatever the text is here, or that can be found in hidden formats. And then they got this guy now is the bad guy that's the governor on the east of the river again, but they truly named him a governor here, and where the other time they had the guy captain. So This guy was going to be the governor, but it's still, I'm going to be using this guy's name. And then it's going to be east of the river, or east of the Jordan River. And he had officials that came with us, came to us. And this is now like a story already that's already been set above, okay? So the pieces are going to start kind of having to be moved around, but you can see that I've already discussed this, but now they're just making it a different person here. Who sent you with authority? I had to put that in, and that's pretty much, I think, spot on what would have been said. And then it has to be to remake its items, because you've seen the text above that they started working on the altars. So there's a lot of things that are in the courtyard. You have the altars, you got to have the pails made, you got to have the shovels made to take the ashes off. You have to have the fire pan that they brought the fire over to place to start the kindling. They have the altar, and then there's stands on top of the altar that have hooks that they're going to cut the meat up so it burns quickly. So there's a lot of utensils there. They had wash bowls, but they would have been making these and then putting them in the house or in the courtyard, or probably sitting off to the side and still working on the house structure, because you got to remember they had to have the roof put on, and that does take a long time. So I don't know how close the altars are. They're put in the front. They would have been on the south side, and the door to the house would have been on the south side. And I know all Google searches show it to the east, but when you search in Exodus, you'll find that Moses had to make curtains for his holy room, and it says in the opening on the south. So, and you finished this structure. It wasn't that, it was making the items for his house. And then they ask who are the names, not restructuring, but they're rebuilding this. And here now they're changing it to a report. I needed to stay completely with a complaint. I don't know which king they're talking about, so I have to leave those two in at this time. Like I said, those are probably some of the yellow markups that you see on the other side of this text here. And now I had to add advisors as well as officials. So it was just, that's what happened. So now that I was thinking, if we have, what's the difference between an official and an advisor? You got me. But I know that I've got to use the two words in that, because it makes sense to use advisors here to complete the sentence here. Again, here, I don't know which king had to add the word letting. I think the word was let in green or in fuchsia, and usually with fuchsia colored words are text that was added in 1977 into the Bible. So when I make it a mine, I try to make it like, okay, if it's going to be an important word, like 2 words to make the sentence, I'll put it in gray text. Otherwise, I'll just leave it italic like this here in red, but not put it in red. They were sent. Because this text is separate from this text. This is going to be the text that Daniel wrote to them. So this text all of a sudden is going to change into, see how it says, we were asked by that governor who sent you with authority to rebuild his house. So the story changes here, okay? Now, this, I don't need any of this stuff. See, they got huge stones. There are blocks, granite blocks, beams laid in the walls. No, the walls were going to be kind of like planks, I would say, to make the walls. But the object here is a lot of this is not needed. This seems to be like now the text is changing to their story again, but it doesn't need to be done. Can get rid of. I already got the story from above, and this is Daniel writing about our Creator in heaven. He gave us to Nebuchadnezzar, and we were captives. And now, however, in the first year of the king for Darius, so it would have been right after Nebuchadnezzar. Now, if you know Daniel, you'll understand that Nebuchadnezzar, his son, was probably going to be after him. I'm not sure if that's how they were going to transfer power, but he's the one that started using our Creator's utensils, and the hand came out and wrote, and it told him, Daniel deciphered and said, you're going to die tonight. And then his Nebuchadnezzar died a couple of days later, I think, 2 days or something later. And then this guy, Daenerys, I'm thinking, appears. Now, this will be the guy that has Daniel put into, he's tricked to put Daniel into the lion's den. And this guy, I think, is the one that was told to rebuild my house. So we don't have that story, except we got words in this text saying that has issued a decree. Otherwise, why would he issue the decree to build his house? Okay. And then I had to add the word sacrificing for our offerings. A lot of people don't understand the difference between sacrificing and offering. If they did not obey any of the 12 commandments, they were to bring their sin offering, and let's take a goat or a ram, and they were to kill it first. That's the sacrifice. Then remove the hide and remove the muscles, the action of the sin. And then those muscles were the offering on top of hung on the hooks on the altar and then burnt up. So they weren't known as burnt offerings. It was a sin offering and that's the offerings that we're talking about. 2 separate acts here were sacrificing by pagans. They would take their animal, sacrifice it on the altar, and then roast it and eat it and party. So that's the difference. And this just tells how he got started coming back. Like I said, it wasn't put in got a warning? Nope. Okay. The text here, it can't be temple, it has to be treasury. Here, this is the name that I was thinking that had to go. Let me copy that. Let me see if I can. No, I don't want to go back up. And then he appointed him as governor. I'm using Daniel because he's such an important character and played such a great role as a prophet up in Babylon that he would have definitely been the one to tell the king that you've now been told, or he actually had a vision with our Creator telling him. So, and that would be unique because only the king of Egypt got a vision by our Creator. That's how he knew Abraham was special. And then I think it would be Daenerys here got a visit from our Creator. Now, he's telling about the house. I don't need all this when I can just say it's not been completed, okay? So I chose those words over the other words. Now it's going to be, now if it pleases the king, learn of us, and search be conducted in the king's records. Now, Daniel would have wrote this in Babylonian, so it wouldn't have had to been interpreted. And then they would have found out who Daniel was and all the things that happened. Because here he's going to say it was issued to him by King Daenerys to rebuild this house. Okay. Now that ends up with chapter 5. So there's a lot here in chapter 5 as well to tell us what is happening. Now, this is the second king. Like I said, Daenerys has to die, and then this guy's got to be put in place. And did they change it to Persia, or was it just like the second kingdom of Babylon? One that was under Nebuchadnezzar, and then maybe it was, Darius, excuse me. He was the second Babylon king, and now we have Cyrus. So I can't tell you all the things about how, because I can't remember. There's a lot I do know, but he's could be the king from Persia, because maybe Persia took over, or is he the Assyrian king that when Babylon and Assyria didn't actually battle it all the way out, but made an agreement that, because I'm thinking that's how the story is written under our Creator's hidden formats, because our Creator does have hidden formats. So at the bottom, the right corner, you can see I got a website. You can go there, and yes, that message is from our Creator. It's a very highly technical format. This is the first basics that I want to show and make sure nobody else tries to deceive you as well by saying, oh, let's get this and we can make it ours. No, I already own this as well for copyright laws. They didn't have a scroll. They had those tablets. And then he found out that King Daenerys did issue the decree, and he probably found out a lot about it, about our Creator and how he here's the fuchsia colored word being added by them. But when he did do this and he learned all this, he said, well, you guys go back there and you rebuilt. No, not right there. See, here it was to be paid at the cost of the royal treasury by King Daenerys. And then he gave him the utensils. And he took him, he brought him to Babylon. And this all of a sudden is his return letter. Now, when Cyrus now understands who our Creator is and what he done, and how Nebuchadnezzar claimed him and had the story written of him eating grass, I'm sure that this king kind of was like shocked getting all this news, all the fill-in text. But I don't know how many years apart these are. That's one of the discrepancies in the books when you find these. They've just thrown out so much of the dates in true names. To keep away, to stay away is easier to say than keep away, stay away. But all of a sudden, like I said, he panics, but he agrees that, yes, you go ahead and rebuild it, and paid all the cost by the royal treasury, and without delay, whatever is needed. And then down here, it's to petition for his safety and their kings and their sons that are now owning the land. Okay. So if it's now Persia running the place and naming it Persia instead of Babylon, that's fine with me. But the object is that he, maybe they had a battle and Persia came in and overtook. There's no text saying that. So, but if that's what happened and that's why this king just found out what was going on in Babylon and didn't know all those things, now he's agreeing that, yes, our creator is the creator of everything, and he's now on board with that. So, because when you look at the text on the right side, you'll see I've got their names in all capital letters. And I only use capital letters and names of people, usually the good Israelis. Okay. So that's how you can differentiate whether they're good guys or bad guys when I use the first letter as a capital. Even though these guys are different kings, they aren't Israelis, but they all believe in our creator, so they have to be good. I can't get around that. It just doesn't make any sense that I don't do that. And this would have been just punishment that doesn't matter. But I don't think that was true. And then we got Haggai, his prophet, helped finish rebuilding. I couldn't fit him in here, but I know that he exists because on the land when they left, Jeremiah was left over. Babylon left him and told him he can go wherever he wants. But he was the prophet that stayed and kind of was like, they appointed a governor, but he was the mainstay because they killed that governor. These guys from the east side of the river came over and killed him. But Haggai and Zechariah here, we know that they were there. I'm thinking this guy was after Jeremiah, and Haggai would have been the newest of the prophets, or the youngest of the prophets if you're looking at old, and Jeremiah would have passed away. His body would have passed away, still living alive in heaven. See, I'm using the third month here. I might have to change that to fifth count. Oh, this is referring to their calendar? No. Yeah, I got to change that to 5 count. I think I did that already later. And let's see, this is when the house is starting to be completed. Yeah, the house was completed. Okay, never a temple. Temple is where a pagan idol is put in, and anybody calling our Creator's house other than a house for meeting with our Creator, a temple, just shame on you weak-kneed Christians. You just don't get it. Let's see here. Yeah, and now that it's there, now they're going to have a celebration at its dedication. And that was after our priest offered, they had to offer a sin offering, and that would have been on the large altar for all Israel. And then they can start new from there. But it wouldn't have been all these, like, how many animals do they I got? I mean, it's just ridiculous sometimes, because there's, like I said, the king would have been the one that uses the large altar, and he would be doing one animal for all 12 tribes. So these guys don't know the text as well as I do. So, and then they appointed the priests and the Levites from the tribes to minister to our Creator as written, not in the books, but written from Moses. Because Moses told him what to write. He did not write anything. Then the survivors celebrated. You don't observe, you celebrate it. That is a statute. There are statutes like circumcision, celebrating the Passover for 8 days, the first day of the year all the way until the next holy day. That was the celebration of his passing over our sons for 8 days. Okay, there it is on our first 5 count. Okay, there, I corrected it there. Yeah, this is just added garbage. So there wasn't much here in 6, I don't think. Although there's quite a bit, but I don't think it's as much, yeah. Because now I've got 7 here. All right, now 7. Here I've changed. Remember I told you about this guy up there. They're trying to make him the king of Persia, or they're trying to here as well. Now this is the really start of Ezra, okay? If you notice, Ezra's name is not mentioned in any of the text above, okay? And that's a lot of text, because right now I'm on the slider. I'm halfway through, okay? So now we have text about Ezra, and he's coming from Egypt, okay? So this king, which I guess to shorten his name down, and because he's going to be a good guy, he's got to be from Egypt, can't be from Persia. He's got to be from Egypt. And I'll show you what the words I was using, because they went up to Jerusalem. Now the text says went up, so that means, that helps me to adjust other text to like meaning that it's Egypt. Okay. This names and stuff don't need to have all these names. I could have probably found a couple formats in here or a couple paragraphs, but I just don't think it's important enough to actually know these guys' names anymore. And the king would have summoned, so he summoned Ezra, our skilled scribe, and I'm using the word skilled and putting it over here. Now, in here, it doesn't say that he's a priest. I guess it does kind of like they're priests, but it actually means a Levite, because there were no more priests. So Ezra's a Levi, and it was in our books about why we are creator of Israel. Now, you have to ask, why is he calling him? Now, you have to understand that the travelers are coming through. They're now saying, the rumors are going through Egypt that, hey, look, they're starting to rebuild the city. We've been going by that desolate place for so long. And all of a sudden, I went by there the other day, and there was at least 80,000, maybe 100,000 people in there that I didn't see last month. So this kind of knowledge or rumors would have been important. So this is this king investigating what's going on up there, because he's probably hearing that the house for our creator's being rebuilt again. That's why they're summoning Ezra. And it's just our skilled scribe. So he probably asked to send somebody who was very knowledgeable about our creator for Israel. And then the king granted everything he requested. Now, the text seemed to be very fast moving here, and I know that there's text that's going to be added in between it, but I'm just saying when you look at the text, it's moving pretty fast, because what would he have granted him? Okay, well, he had to find out about our Creator, and then most likely when the king had also probably sent somebody up there to find out and investigate what's going on, and now he wants to know what's going on, and then he's going to release all the descendants from Israel that went up to Jerusalem. Okay, this is why I said it has to be Egypt. They went up to Jerusalem in our 7th year for this king. Okay, and we came to Jerusalem in our 5th month. I don't see anything really hard to really explain, except for now I've got a few here. It's not laws, it's about the commands from our Creator. He studies the commands from Wyvie, and to live by them and to teach. Yeah, I re-edited a lot of this, so this is going to get cleaned up, because I pretty much, we're going to add, I moved the word teach over here for teaching us to live by his statutes and commandments. Because when you've got statutes, you got to have commandments, because they are the next. Like I said, the statutes are the most important. Circumcision, the celebration, and this was for the people. There's other statutes for the priest and a statute for the king about anointment. Now, here, this has to be commandments. It's got to be put in here, because this is the agreement that makes them be able to live in our Creator's nation that he's establishing, and also it goes for forgiveness that they can enter into heaven. So this is the agreement. If you aren't following the 12 commandments, then you really need a lot of forgiving, because there's going to be a lot of Christians all of a sudden that ain't going to make it. They're one word, they don't even know what that means. They're off on the other side, not paying attention to how important the commandments are. And now this is the copy that he's going to give a decree to Ezra, a Levite and a scribe. See, they tried to make him a priest, but the only thing is there are no priests. Okay, priests have to wear robes, and they have to walk in and talk to our Creator if that person is forgiven. If they don't have priests, then you don't really have anything. You don't have, you're in exile. Okay, so the word priest is wrong, but a Levite would be correct. And our scribe issued a decree, not any but every Israeli of the people, we know they're Israelis, in his kingdom, who are willing to return to Jerusalem or go. I like the word return, not go. They may, I changed to can't, and leave with Ezra to travel to Jerusalem. Here's one of those times that you need these 3 important words to make the verse. But here, this king and his 7 counselors, and I'm thinking I might change it to lords, because we know that when Joseph was made a lord, that's how Egypt had done the overseers of whatever. Maybe one of, he was put in charge of food produce. So one would have been building, I guess. One would have been, I don't know. I've got too much on my mind to think right now, but I know that I went through them before. So it could be lords, but the silver and gold, and he's going to offer silver and gold to help out as well. So you know that he too probably heard about everything that our Creator did in Babylon to Nebuchadnezzar, and heard about Daniel, heard about the guys walking in fire, coming out. So the thing there is once Babylon went on to our Creator's calendar, all Egypt would have what's going on over there, because we go by the pagan months. So, but here these kings woke up and said, well, if he made himself known, I think we got stories about that made himself known in Egypt before. So they were all on board, and they're going to help them out build as well. So yeah, this here is another title for God, and that's the Hebrew word, but I need it to mean his name, because we know his name. We don't call him a god. That's demeaning our Creator. It's a title, not his name. Yeah, they're going to send all this. That they don't need any of that stuff. These singers, doorkeepers, servants. I mean, how many doorkeepers you need? Gatekeepers. How many you need? Okay. They got hundreds down here in the list. But there's no temple servants. There's no singers. Here, I needed to move this verse from here down to here. It just reads better when you read this together, that you need this statement before you can get to this statement. Okay? But it just read out of order. So I did move the words to make sense. Yeah. This is the text that was found. Now 8, it was funny because I have one verse here, and then I found other verses down here that it could have hooked to or connected to, but I didn't know until I could clean them up. But you're going to see that happen a little bit here, that another space, and then the story's going to pick up again. But it's the same story. The story's going to read right like all this stuff was added, but the first writer's text and story shows up here. Now this is Ezra after he's done talking to the king. He's going up to a river by this place. This is a city in Egypt. So I'm thinking it's at the rivers at the top of Egypt. So it's going to be like the last one there, Egypt. But they're going to stay there for, I didn't put 3 days, I put weeks, for the simple fact that now that the petition or the decree has got to be issued all around, and then they're going to wait for them to come together. Here's our locating spot, and then they're going to go up. But what happens here is this is going to start another verse here, where I got 2 sentences here and then got down here, okay, that to humble ourselves. And then it's actually, I moved more text around later, but yeah, look at here, 200 temple servants, 220 temple servants. I mean, look, they had 13 priests and they had their attendants. That was it. Okay. The word seek to petition, because they're going to be asking for a safe journey, it's known as a petition. When you're talking to our Creator, asking for something, that's a petition. If you're going to talk to our Creator, that is a prayer, okay? When you are praying, that's the act that you're of how your stance is, or you're kneeling as your arms open. That is the word prayer or pray. Prayer is to talk to our Creator. So now he's asking for a safe journey and tells that they didn't need the horsemen to protect them on the way, because he told them our Creator is favorable and we don't need any protection. We go by his will, or his trust of being Lord over us and taking care of us. That's the title Lord meaning. Then he set apart 10 of his brothers to give him the gold and silver. And then down here, yeah, look at all this. All this text is like what? And here, now they got all new utensils down here. 100 talents of, got to be silver, and gold talents, 100. This is ridiculous. Yeah, here's 600 talents of silver, worth 100 talents and 100, I don't know. Anyways, 20 gold bowls, what do they use them for? It's just ridiculous. They've really deceived you and really putting in a text for their God into your text. Or our text. And then they're going to weigh them out. Notice I didn't need too much correction here. That's kind of odd, not to see all kinds of text editing here. So then deliver them from their enemies, but they're actually raiders. That was the first correction I needed in a while there. And then they got there, they came to Jerusalem, and they handed it to this priest here. And they weighed out the numbers to be recorded at the time, to whom had returned as survivors from Israel. So this is telling you that, like I was saying, that this king has to be in Egypt, because here it's talking about those who had returned from Babylon. That's why I'm using the word survivors, not captives. But the ones in Egypt, they fled. So now we have 8 here. Just a quick little bit there. And then there was a problem at the river, because this is where this text is going to go, saying that our people had mixed marriages to not separate them from the races in Egypt. And they've got intermingled, but I just used the word mixed. And that is not being unfaithfulness. That's a rebellion. That's known as a rebellion when you're against our Creator. And then rebellion turns into evilness. But when you start rebelling, there's a lot of things that you can do to mean the word rebel. Or why I use the word rebel or rebelling. Depends on what's going on here. So now it's not this matter, it's about rebelling. When he heard that, he sat down appalled, and then it was actually not words from our Creator, it was the law from our Creator. On account of their unfaithfulness, and the faithful, not the exiles, these were the ones that were fleeing, but now they're the faithful that had gathered to him that are wanting to go back to Israel. He was worried, and he fell on his knees after he got up, and then he fell on his knees and he stretched out his arms. So he was going to pray to our Creator, and then that's what you see, this talking to our Creator. And then it's now that he's going to bring up in this that, yes, we've rebelled, but now you showed mercy to us, not grace, but mercy, that you're going to let us escape, or you had let us escape. Like I said, these were the ones that went to Egypt, so they escaped, they fled. And then now you granted us to return by showing your kindness to us. don't need this bondage. They weren't slaves. They didn't do that. The word slave is overused big time. They didn't, yes, they did have slaves, but not as, when you got hundreds of people coming in to live in your land, and they would have settled as their own city. So the city that is mentioned here would have been maybe where those that have fled to hung out together. Okay, it's better to stay with your own people when you come into a foreigner land, till you get to know the language. You got to have a lot of mixing of knowledge of the people there. So it does help when people, that immigrants come into a country, that they do need to learn their language for them to have a better life. Without the language, it's very hard to take advantage of what they come for. And it's not forsaken. They failed. They failed in this law from our Creator about what Moses had wrote and told them. And it was, do not give your daughters to their sons, nor take their daughters to your sons. Now, this is the law, but the text down here, they're going to get rid of just the women that have married and not the sons that married their daughters. So they would have had to give up their daughters. But there is no text that relates to this in Exodus. Excuse me. I needed, in Exodus, we have an Egyptian son arguing with and fighting with an Israeli son. So we know that the males came with them, but there's no really women that came from them. So, but that's what this text is telling us, that there was this cleaning out of people that before they went into the Sinai. So they didn't break it. They broke this law of intermarried. And now he's asking, are you going to be angry with us to the point of our destruction? So that's what he was referring to. And here I've got fleers as escapees. I like the word fleer, so I put that down. I might have to change it back to escapees. But anyways, that's what he was talking about, our Creator. And now the next and last chapter here is going to be where Elam here, he comes up, because again, not a confession, but it was about rebellion. Now this guy approaches them and says, yes, many have been unfaithful and married foreigners and the races in Egypt. But there is a way of hope for them, and that is for them to make a vow, not a covenant, a vow. A vow is something that you promise our Creator that you will always do this to be closer to Him. Okay? So they made a vow, and then they sent away their wives. So they had, and their children. I don't think so. It's all about male lineage for descendants to live on the land. So it would have been just their wives being sent away, and then they would have been able to take wives from Israelis tribe, the other tribes. But this is not a commandment, it's a law. See, they don't even know what a commandment is anymore. They just put it in there. but this is a law from our Creator, and it's kind of like this has been done according to our past. And that's what I was trying to say. I don't know, there's no story from Sinai time that talks about this. So then it's for him to not arise, but him to stand up, Ezra to stand up for the faithful, those that are truly unto our Creator, about this matter. It's your responsibility. So be wise and act for us. So then you got Ezra standing up before the people for the Israelis to make a vow, and then they did make the vow and got rid of their wives. And who married foreign wives did not add to their guilt of what was going on. I could have used the word who. I didn't see that till now. But now that is Ezra cleaned up, and that's the end of Ezra here. Now, I've got the next part here. Now, this is what I did was I reordered it with new editing in here. And then below that, I removed the editing so I can now take that text and put it, use that to mesh with Zechariah. So these are still all the things I still have in question, because I have to title this before Ezra, okay? But I needed this location, but you can see I've now removed the numbers off the side here. But this will just help reference where I'm moving text, because that'll be, let me move that over a little bit. Because here is going to be the first group that I moved, and I've got this so you can search the PDF when I get that put out. I will have a link in for the PDFs that I'm doing now. And then what it'll be is this, when I move this down, this verse is not going to make it, but this is going to fit really nice with, see how I've got the paragraphs over here off to the right-hand side, how there's a small paragraph and then another small paragraph, then you'll see like a line, one thin line, empty space. That's because those two paragraphs make a larger paragraph, and then there's the next group. So what'll happen is that there'll be a paragraph where it just stops, but when I put this text there, this is going to be the second part of that text. But I've got all this laid out and ready to say I moved here, moved there. Let me see, because I know somewhere here is where the editing is going to start showing up. Still before Ezra, and I'm already up to the letter G, and saying that's how many different subjects have been already told. H now. Okay, now here, moved here. I moved this up here. So wherever FF is, do a search. This group came up. And then I needed to edit this, because when you read this, I needed to edit these words here. And oh, that's what I did. This actually had this part, and this was separated. This group went with this, but what I did when I read this, I needed to add and say that there was a decree sent, so we start actually figuring out who Ezra is, because this is the first chapter for Ezra, okay? Here we got this is the second chapter. No, that's before Ezra. So this is the first chapter for Ezra. So you got to introduce them correctly. And so what I did was I moved things down and now combined that group. And then I added these words just so the intro sounds correct. And I'm just going to get rid of this. But you can see I'm editing here. And now I moved group A here, moved it here. I've got moved group, and then I've got either it's up or down, and then I say I moved it here, and then I give the 2 letters to be able to do like a word search and go get them back and forth. But this text was in order with this text here, so I had to stick this in the middle because this was one of those paragraphs that was stuck here in the middle nowhere. But when I read this, that's coming from some text down below, it fits really good here, so that's why I put it here. This was, I was telling you, I moved it around to teach over here, teaches us to live by his commandments and statutes to Israelis. And now, oh, this was the group right here. Yeah, I had to move it from above. No, this was the one, FF. So that was what I moved up here. Okay. But everything's coded and named to do this change. And here's that verse that I just said that was out there in the middle of nowhere. And it went really good when I stuck it in where I put it. So, and that does happen a lot, more than you think. Here I'm moving, okay, I moved this group here to here where they're counting, because when the counselors gave them the gold, it would have been good to set apart them at that time to have them way out or have them in control of it. And then they went up to the river, okay? So made sure that they didn't just magically have the gold appear, gold and silver appear at the river. So when the king announced that he was going to give it to him, that he had brothers come pick it up, and then they went up there. Okay, I moved, this is the group, this is where it was at that I moved up. And this has to be moved down because it has to be, they're in Jerusalem, okay? So we still have this other stories about the separating of themselves in intermarriage. So this has to be said correctly in order. That's where he would have found out at the river that they would have before they traveled. So now let's see. I'm already to Ezra 1E, which means there's that many different stories now grouped up together for Ezra. And had to move this down. Oh, no. This was CC. I think I just said that I was going to move that down. CC, move group down. I looked and I was noting my, it wasn't, I forgot to do that. Moved here. Okay. Now this is where that went at the end of the story. And then this was that one verse that I said that was stuck, or one small paragraph that was stuck out there. And I got rid of this one here because they already arrived up in there. See, they already arrived. So this verse is going to go with that to make it a 2 small paragraphs to get together. Now, this is what the text is going to look like, and I've started to get rid of the chapter numbers now. And what this is just is cleaning everything up. So what the editing was done before that I just went through. And then, sorry, I'm scrolling through this pretty fast yet. You see there's a lot of, this is probably the text you're seeing off to the right. Now, where's the, because okay, I guess, okay, that's what I got cleaned up. Okay, I've got it in 3. That's what I was looking for. It's in 3. Here it goes. Now, this is Ezra getting meshed with Zechariah, or Zechariah. And when you look at Zechariah, and I'm going to have all these in PDFs, but the thing here is it's going to be where you see I have to code these to say that they come from one book to another book. Okay? But this is the story of Zechariah, and he's in the land, and all this is talking about his vision that he's having, about all the people that are going to be coming down. He's going to prophesy to him that there's going to be old and young still in the streets of Jerusalem again. So our prophet was sending the messages that he is going to have them sent down or all come back. So again, I don't know about these dates and times, but in this month at this time, then this is still in Zechariah, that this guy who's coming down, okay, because I know that there's now there's another prophecy here. Okay, now that's the end of Zechariah that I've got here. And there is another small part of Zechariah, but there's a little bit here because these are the two names that I was showing you before, where I got them from. And then this is even the prophet Zechariah that was in the land left with the remnants is going to meet with the captives that are coming down. So he's been notified that they're coming down. And like this guy here's name, I'm pretty sure it's going to end up being Daniel. But again, Zechariah. And then we got Ezra again. Now I think we got quite a bit of Ezra here. I think that was because Zechariah is not that long. I think there might be just a little bit at the very end. Yeah, it's going to be just a little bit right here at the end. And I've got this kind of named that it's repeating Isaiah's vision about Jesus coming. So I know that each prophet is supposed to talk about Jesus coming. So maybe it is Zechariah, these words are coming from him. But when I'm reading it and deciding what kind of chapter I'm going to put on it, right now it's repeating Isaiah's vision. Okay. So only one that would know about him riding on a donkey and just and humble and will speak peacefully. These, because they understood him as a king, only in Isaiah knows this kind of words. Okay. So, but that's how now I've got two books combined together, and the next book that I'm going to put in is Haggai. Okay, so stick around for the fun because I'm going to go into that text probably tomorrow. But I know that I won't. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I guess I'm going to do Haggai, and then Nehemiah, I think, has some text of returning. And I think that'll be all that I can put into the text. And then I'll get to Daniel, okay? Daniel's going to be fun because once I get Daniel, then we got these stories, and then we know Jesus is going to come. So the thing here is the return is being put together by finding the first writer's formats. And I know this was a summary video, so I don't know how much I'm going to keep of everything, but other than that, I will see you on the next video, probably tomorrow. Have a good day.